Hi, everyone. This is Jen Grisanti, and on my story therapy interview today, I have someone very, very special to me with Brig Munoz Liebowitz. Welcome, first of all. Thank you so much for being here. So Brig and I met in Writers on the Verge. So I am going to read you her bio. So it's mind-blowing for me to look at what has transpired for Brig between then and now, and what a gift it all is, and a tribute to her talent. And I'm excited for you to hear what she has to share. Okay, so Brig Munoz Liebowitz serves as showrunner and executive producer on the upcoming HBO Max comedy Gordita Chronicles. Her writing career was launched on the staff of NBC's Brooklyn Nine-Nine. She went on to work on comedy series such as TBS People of Earth, NBC's Abby's, Diary of a Future President for Disney, and HBO Max's Love Life. Love that. She has developed projects for CBS, CBS, TBS, and Hulu WT, Berlanti Productions, and currently has a 2-year development deal at Sony Pictures Television. I love when I think about how when I had meals with you and we would talk about the idea of the dream, and to see it all happening in such a beautiful way. Congratulations.
Thank you. I literally couldn't have done it without you.
I am so grateful. Well, I cannot tell you how proud I am. Like when I see your writing, when I see your name, I remember with the HBO show, what is the Love Life? When I saw your name, I'm like, oh my, so happy. So it's so exciting for me to see how your voice has grown from the program to Brooklyn Nine-Nine to what you're doing, and I cannot wait to see the Gordita Chronicles. I'm very excited about that. Thanks. So first of all, I want to start with the idea, a general basic question, which takes you back to when you started in the first place. What made you think, I want to be a writer, and why did you want to write?
I guess I've always been writing. I think the initial goal for me actually was directing when I was a kid, because directing was a much more visible role in terms of film and television. People always laud the director, and writers are the ones that are sort of hiding behind the camera. I didn't really know, I didn't have any understanding of that as a career choice. I loved to write, I loved to read. I was always writing anything I could. So it's funny that it didn't really occur to me to have that be a career choice. It became clear to me when I was maybe like 12 or 13 that was an actual job I could have. And I applied for undergrad for college. But even when I was in college, I didn't fully understand that TV writing was a job until I was like well into my third year of college. I started taking some comedy writing classes and got to meet alumni and veteran who had written on some of my favorite shows. And I was such a TV head when I was a kid that the idea that I could work on the thing that I love so much was an immediate, like, yeah, I have to do that.
I love that. That's beautiful. So when I think about what we talked about in the intro, as far as your arc of growth from writing program to all these incredible shows to landing in an overall deal, take me into some of the highlights of how one does that, first of all, and like the highs and lows, let's say, along that path.
Got it. Okay, so some of the highs and lows in that process. Well, a definite high was that first acceptance to the NBC Writers on the Verge program. I had applied to so many of the diversity programs so many times. At this point, the last time that I applied, I was like, it's a lottery ticket, but we'll see. But I did do my best, I think, to try to figure out why I hadn't gotten in the times previous. And I had asked to read samples. I had asked to read the essays and the creative portions of the applications that people see before they read your sample. And that actually changed everything. In fact, I had bought a book of greatest college essay application essays of all time to study what people did to get the attention of the reader, because that is the single most important thing, I think, in these workshop applications and in getting representation or succeeding in a contest, is having a great grab off the beginning, putting your best foot forward, not just, figuratively speaking, but you want to put the best, most interesting, most scandalous, most like riveting part of yourself out there first. And sometimes that it's hard to know how to do. It's not a very natural thing to do, especially for writers who many people are introverts. It's not a natural thing to do. So anyway, getting in was like, I figured it out, and they want me, and maybe I don't suck. So that was really, really exciting. The workshop itself was a total joy. We had such a great class of people. I'm friends to this day with all of them. I'm Claudia, one of the people I met in the workshop. I'm co-running a show with her, and that, it was so wonderful to be able to like do this together, to come this far together. That's another high, but I'm fast forwarding. Along the way, first job, I can't even put words to it. Working on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I remember walking into the writer's room for the very first time and seeing names on the door that I had just worshipped for years as a viewer, to know people whose names I recognize from favorite episodes, and to now be able to call them friends and colleagues is an incredible honor. Some of the lows, I would say, would be, struggling to get that second job. That can be really discouraging. You've had all these highs one after another. Representation, got my first job, my first script, I get to be on set for the first time. And the thing that people don't tell you is sometimes you get a little too expensive for your experience level. I think that could be one of the reasons. For whatever reason, people don't, get a second job right off the bat. That can be very spooking. And I think that was a difficult moment in time, I think, to accept, but also super important because it showed me that I could get through it. And I think all writers, all creative people have periods of feast and periods of famine. And it's really important to learn how to prepare for them, because they're inevitable, whether it's because of the marketplace or the economy or family stuff. Like everything comes up, you have to be prepared to weather the storm creatively and emotionally, I think, because things always do get better and you can always power through.
Yes, that is so true. That is very, very true. I think I remember when I first heard that people don't recognize that the hardest point in climbing the ladder is very often getting your second job after your first job.
Yes.
Which I think is a fascinating thing that a lot of people don't really think about or talk about. So that is so true. And I also love that you tapped on the idea of when you become too expensive or when your price tag doesn't fit into the budget of the show, and how that becomes problematic as well. So I love that you talked about those things.
Now that I'm on the other side of it, I see, you may love a writer and think they're incredible, but someone who is a staff writer, especially with these shorter order seasons, especially with a staff writer who you hire, right, and they're fabulous, they want to bump up a level and they immediately cost you double. And as much as you may love them, you may need somebody who can have more of a skill set in certain areas than they're able to provide. And that's a lot of the time why some people feel like they need to get replaced, either to keep that cheaper price or, until you have the experience. And people have to repeat levels in order to get bumped up eventually. So.
And I think that's another thing that a lot of writers don't recognize as well. Like I know so many writers have to do the staff level over several times because, it's not a long enough period of time that they're at the staff level before they can go to the story editor level. So I think all of that is a great thing for writers to be aware of. So one question I wanted to ask you that I didn't put down, but I started thinking about, because you came from Writers on the Verge, when you're thinking about the diverse voice with staffing, say, for example, with this Gordita Chronicles, what do you look for when you think, how does that factor into the staffing process?
Sure. I mean, I think it always depends on the show and the content of the show. For us, we really wanted to staff people. It was pretty great. Our first season room, I would say everyone except for one or two people was either an immigrant themselves or the first generation child of an immigrant. And the show is about immigration. So we really wanted to be authentic as possible, and we wanted to pull stories from our own personal lives. So everything you'll see when it comes out on HBO Max, little plug, everything is pulled from our lives. Every story is personal. It's based on Claudia's life, but we all put our own experiences, our parents' experiences into the show. So by default, our show required people that had experience with immigration, and incidentally or by nature of immigration, they are diverse people. In terms of a show that isn't necessarily about a diverse topic, diversity, I had a wonderful experience with it on People of Earth, actually. 50% of the staff was female, 50% were BIPOC, and it altered the stories that we told. It enriched our universe of stories and our different perspectives. Anybody who is afraid of diversity is really missing out on a beautiful buffet of personal stories to share from. So I would just say, look the way you would look to diversify your stock portfolio. It's for the same reason. You don't want to keep telling the same story and over again. There's risks in that, repeating yourself, becoming aged, becoming dated, infusing your narratives with ideas that aren't your own, make you better.
I love that. And I also think, like, with what you're saying there, it's so important for people who are staffing to recognize the beauty of everything you just mentioned. I also think it's so important for writers to embrace their worldview and to be aware of the stories when they're in meetings to share, that show their worldview, that separate their worldview, because that is what we want to see the world. Yes, exactly.
100%. That's what I don't want your fancy education. I don't really care about your style, or I want that inner part of you that nobody else has seen, that you're afraid to share. I want to know you and those diverse stories. Like I said, it's kind of hard to know how to put them out there sometimes. One of the pieces of advice I give is, like, know what your stories are. Everybody has like 3 or 4 good stories that your friends, when you're at a bar, are always, oh, tell that story. Oh, tell that story. Those are the stories we want to hear in those meetings. We want to know about the messy stuff. We want to know about the embarrassing stuff. We want to know about, like, the scandalous stuff, all of that. It's important to remember that that's what we want. We're not afraid of that. That's what we're seeking.
Exactly. And I think that, like, people make the mistake of attaching shame when that's their gold. So I think that there's so much to learn with that in the writing process.
Yeah.
Now, looking at the writing, when you think about all the different types of shows you've worked on and experiences you've had, what would you say is a point where the writing just started making sense to you? You got it, you got structure, you got emotion, you got the concept. At what show were you on, and what would you say that moment was like when it just felt authentic, natural, flowing?
Do you mean for the show or for myself as a writer?
For yourself as a writer.
Okay, I would say my second job, People of Earth, is when it really felt natural to me. I felt like Brooklyn was an amazing learning experience. I got to watch some real pros, and I think I did a pretty good job myself, but I was a beginner. Staff writers is an apprentice job for the most part. And if you're lucky, you get to write scripts, which I did, and I was very fortunate. But you're there to be shaped by the people that are running the show so that you can be helpful to them later. And I got that from them, and I was able to put it to the test in a different environment. One of the writers from People of Earth, Norm Hiscock, brought me on to David Jenkins' show, People of Earth, and it was in that environment where I was supported by someone I had worked with before in a new, environment of a different kind of content show, where I was able to put those skills that I acquired to work and finally feel like all the gears were moving and everything was humming along.
I love that. I had that sense when you brought up that show, which I thought was great. Now with Gordita Chronicles, so that's upcoming. So we're so beyond excited about that. Tell me now, have you already filmed one season?
Yeah, we shot it in Puerto Rico during hurricane season from like September through December of last year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How hard was that with the pandemic?
It's kind of incredible. I was really scared to shoot the pilot, which we shot in March of 2021. I was really nervous to go to Puerto Rico and be on set, but I have to say that testing works and vaccines work and masks work. Puerto Rico was incredible with their masking vigilance. Everybody was like, we're masking, we don't want to get sick. And they really cared about each other. I don't think we had a single case actually on set because everyone was really careful. Yeah, I was scared at first, but really when I saw that it was a team effort and people really cared, it was far less scary.
Oh, that is fantastic. Yeah. When can we see it?
Okay, it's coming out June 23rd, I believe, 23rd on HBO Max. We're very, very excited. We're done with post. We're just putting finishing touches on our main titles. It's very exciting.
Excellent. Well, I will definitely be putting a post up on Facebook so you can all remember to watch it on June 23rd. So for the last question, because we have people who are going to be pitching to you on the Story Therapy event, and we are so excited to hear what you have to say. When you think about where you started with pitching and what you learned from when you started to now, what would you say are some of the tools or tips that made you better at pitching?
I mean, recording myself was huge. Not just, I did it separately, the audio portion to hear what my verbal crutches were and how I sounded comfortable or uncomfortable. Definitely the more times I practiced, the more confident I sounded in my own pitch. Learning about inflection and realizing I couldn't just, although there are people that do just read their pitches and sell them, no problem, but realizing that my pitches were so much more attractive when I acted them out a little bit. And I pushed myself to get better at putting on a voice for a character or reading the dialogue, performing it a bit, or slowing down if I was talking too fast. I'm really employing as many of my acting or improv skills as I had acquired to really sell the pitch. I think if you can be interested in your own pitch and enthusiastic in it, you get other people excited. That's one thing. So recording myself and practicing, really finding the areas in my pitch where I was weak, going back and practicing them over and over and over. If anybody here is a musician, they know that that's the practicing process, is isolating the weak points, going back and then just doing it rote until you get it right. So that was huge. Practicing it for friends. And getting the points, asking them, where were you bored? Where did you tune out? And cutting or revising those parts, because actually not everything you have in your pitch is necessary. Sometimes I would say those are the biggest things I learned from pitching.
Excellent.
And smiling.
I love that.
Smiling is huge.
And what else?
Smiling.
Oh, smiling. Passion. Yes. I love that. That is fantastic. Well, wow. I love all of the gems you just tapped into for our audience. I am so excited for everyone to see this. I am so proud looking at you and hearing your voice and knowing all of the success that is continuing to happen for you. Like, you are becoming a power voice out there, and what a gift.
Thank you. And I have to say, and I know I've told you this before, everything I learned from you, I use every day. And I bring it into our writer's room and I teach other writers what I learned from you. We've got Who Dilemma Action Goal on our board right now.
Oh, I love that. That makes me so happy. You have no idea. That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Oh my God. All right. So thank you for your time, your energy, and we look forward to hearing you on the Story Therapy event.
I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Uh-oh, did the internet freeze up? I think the internet freezed up.